Happy Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, Open Searchers. This is our community meeting. Thanks for joining us. We've got two presenters today and a couple of announcements, and I believe that will be the bulk of it today. If we have any time after presenters, it'll be an open office hour. People can ask whatever they like. This really should be an open forum for people to just bring up whatever they want. So we'll try to leave a couple minutes at the end for any ad hoc topics. But anyways, thanks for joining. Before we get to the good stuff, I'm Nathan Boot, or Nate if you prefer. I'm a developer advocate for OpenSearch, and OpenSearch project. And let's get to going. We've got a couple of etiquette type things to get out of the way before we get started, so let's get to it. Please do introduce yourself before speaking. Please mute yourself unless you're actively speaking. Cameras are, of course, optional, and questions anytime in chat or audio, unless we have a presenter and they express a preference. Let's try to be respectful to our presenters. And of course, if you're disruptive, you'll be removed. No screen annotations, profile will only show names. If you need to share your screen, we'll need to make you a co-host, which will be arranged before time, and passcodes are not required. Hopefully, if you have not checked in early, you will have typed in a password to get into the meeting. And that's about it. Same old stuff as last time. Thanks for coming. Let's get a couple of announcements out of the way. We have got OpenSearchCon Berlin coming up. The registrations are starting to pile up, and we've got a stack of exhibitors, a stack of presenters. We are set for OpenSearchCon Berlin. We just need to get the word out and get people registering. If you have not registered yet, we sure could use anyone who intends on going. Help us predict the numbers a little bit and sign up as soon as you can. We can best serve you by knowing how many people we're gonna serve there. So please and thank you. Also, same thing for OpenSearchCon India. You can find all of the details about the conference on our website under OpenSearchCon. There's a little child node for OpenSearchCon India. Wonderful. Any questions about those before I move on? Should be some good stuff. I hear Bengaluru in India gets kind of hot that time of year, but I hear it's going to be a pretty good time of year to be on the coastal regions there for a conference. So that should be awesome. And of course, who doesn't like going to Berlin for a conference either for the OpenSearchCon Berlin? Savvy?
I thought of one. We also have a user group starting over in Dublin, Ireland. So sign up for that. If you're in the area, May 10th, we're going to have our first Dublin user group for OpenSearch. There's a link to the event in chat now. I'd love to see you there.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one. I will be probably sipping margaritas in Cancun at that time. I will not be in Dublin. However, I am somewhat sad I won't make that one. I sure would like to say I've been to Dublin. But yeah, please do show up if you can. We'd love to grow the community. Hats off to Chris for starting these all over the place. Any other announcements from the crowd or anything else for the good of the order?
We expect a 1.3. Which one is it? 1.3.16, right, Nate?
That's right.
We expect that out today.
Awesome. So we were going to have Samuel Herman from Oracle join us to talk about their extended storage, but I believe Samuel will not be making it today. So we've got an RFC that Mohit is going to talk to us about. Again, these RFCs are how we invite the community to help us build our community. we value the feedback of not only people who contribute code and docs, but people who participate in our mind share. And you can do that by commenting on RFCs. And if you have leadership capabilities, it's a good place to get people fired up and really thinking about how we're implementing these features. So I do humbly encourage anyone to participate in these RFCs. And please do that with a level of confidence as well. We really do welcome the feedback of anyone, and that will be the bootstrap for our community as we grow and grow. So please do participate in the RFCs if you excuse me, if you have time. And other than that, I believe I will hand it over to Mohit, a senior software development engineer for OpenSearch.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Hi
Quite well.
everyone. I work with AWS. I am a software development engineer here. Today, I want to talk about basically an RFC which we created to essentially improve the out-of-box experience for users who use OpenSearch. Okay, so yeah. Basically, this is a document that we had written to basically understand from the community how we can improve the out-of-box experience for OpenSearch users. So just to give you a brief idea, right? Today, whenever a user is using OpenSearch, let's say they are a new user, the kind of use cases that we have: request log analytics, metrics, trace data, security analytics, full text search, whatnot, right? And OpenSearch provides a lot of basically knobs and configurations through settings and mappings, which users can tune and get the experience that they want. But what happens is basically all these settings are very granular in nature. So someone who is, let's say, new to the entire OpenSearch ecosystem, right? They may need to go to the documentation, read about all the settings, and then one by one try out what works for them, what not works for them. And also one more thing is, like, with the velocity with which we are adding features in OpenSearch, right? It may get difficult for users to catch up to those as well. Like the community is doing great work, adding a lot of new features. Every release, we are seeing some big payloads coming out, right? And all of them are basically, while providing good features, it adds an extra cognitive load on the users to decide whether this feature would help them or not. As developers or contributors, we at times know what kind of a feature would benefit what kind of use case, right? So let's think about maybe data streams. So data streams in OpenSearch basically provide some out of the box experience. It's an abstraction which basically eases out of the box experience for handling time series data for you in general, right? Like, so why basically can't we extend it to, let's say, all other use cases that users are using OpenSearch for, be it request logs, metrics, analytics, and all I talked about, right? So basically, to onboard these use cases as a user, what I'll do is I'll try out various settings which are available, various, let's say, data types which OpenSearch supports, and what data type suits my use case, what basically data I should store, what data I can skip for my use case. And exploring all of this is going to take a lot of time, right, before I can even go to production and start using OpenSearch. So this creates a very visible friction, right? Like, I have to understand the entirety of it, and then only I can, let's say, start using it in production. And this is the kind of entry barrier we are trying to resolve with what we propose forward in this RFC. And one of the ways that we thought about how we can solve it is basically when users are creating the indexes. So indexes are the basically core abstraction which you use to store data. And if basically when users are creating the indices, if they can provide some form of a context to us, like what's the kind of use cases or the application they are building this index for, what kind of data they are going to analyze using this index, and basically OpenSearch can provide them a set of default configurations and settings which basically they can directly apply, trusting that, okay, this is what the kind of recommendation from the community or the developer community for OpenSearch is for various use cases. Yeah, so in order to do so, we basically propose the concept of context index templates. We are still basically on the issue. We have had some traction, so we are still basically discussing on the naming. But for the sake of this meeting, I'll just call them context index templates. So what they'll allow us is basically to any users, they can easily configure the indices based on their use cases. And this context itself, right, it can be a first-class citizen for the indices through these templates that we have created. And let's say any feature which is developed, uh, those basically, if we feel that this is something, let's say a user would benefit from, we can add that configuration by default to the template, so that any index created using that template, the context template, that can inherit that setting and get that feature out of the box. So just to explain it further, right, let's think about a few examples. So let's take logs. So for log data, I think one of the things is like there is a lot of data, right? Like there's a lot of raw data which users are sending. So how do we ensure that we are optimized on space? So by default, OpenSearch provides LZ4 as the compression algorithm which is used. But there are other alternatives which compress better, and but at the cost of, let's say, performance, or some alternatives which even provide better performance and provide better storage. So can we basically create a template which provides me, okay, this is the compression algorithm you should use, the refresh interval that you should have for this use case. For example, log analytics, users may not be accessing the data immediately, right? In most of the cases, so refresh interval can be higher than what's default in OpenSearch for, let's say, the search or text-based use cases where we need the data immediately. So refresh interval can be higher. The merge policy, merge policy is how basically when the data is indexed, it determines how, so it creates small chunks, and those chunks are combined over time so that the searches are faster on them. So how to basically combine or merge those small chunks or segments, as we call them in OpenSearch? What's the algorithm or what's the logic we should use for that? There are multiple available, and based on the use case, let's say for logs use case, there is a log byte size merge policy which can be used. And one thing is, like, for example, log byte sizes was released somewhere in 2729, if I remember correctly, for OpenSearch. And any customer, let's say, if, or user, if they were using OpenSearch before that, they may have to go and change the index and apply this. Instead, if they had created, let's say, this using a context template, we could have provided them an option that, okay, if any feature which we are building or the community is building, and if that basically becomes available in OpenSearch, it can be part of the context template, and the index going forward, when the context template is updated, will be able to use those optimizations as well. So as they upgrade, they don't have to do any extra work. A lot of by default basically configurations which we or the community or the developers feel are useful for those use cases can be applied. So one of the examples for, let's say, this upgrade kind, right? Let's think about the events or transactions use case. Let's say we have a transaction data which we are putting in OpenSearch for analysis purposes. And transaction data is something, let's say you create a transaction, then we perform, let's say, an authorization, then the transaction is captured, settled, and whatnot, right? So there are a lot of updates happening. So we know that events data or transaction data, they are kind of update or upsert heavy. And in 213, we launched something called fuzzy filters, which can optimize the updates by doing in-memory lookups. Now, any user who would have created, let's say, such indices in the past, they would have needed to apply this setting, basically read about this in the release notes, then apply this setting, try this out, and then basically reap the benefits. Instead, if there was a context template for, let's say, the events or transactions use case, and the index was created using that, as soon as they would have upgraded, say, from 212 to 213, they would have, and we would have basically in the context template itself applied this, that, okay, we should optimize doc ID lookups through this Bloom fuzzy filter. They would have been able to get the benefit of it just after the upgrade. They would have not needed to essentially perform anything else, like go basically the entire cycle that I talked about of understanding new features. So yeah, this is at a high level what we are proposing to solve this problem. And basically this was an overview of how we thought about solving this. I'll move to the proposal now from a little like the interface and storage perspective. Before that, if there are any questions I can answer, otherwise I can take them towards the end of the overall presentation. Cool. So I'll move to the proposal, the overall proposal. So what we are proposing here are three things. One is this system context templates. So this is the entire resource essentially, which basically will allow, let's say, a user, a plugin, or an admin to configure the templates. And this can be the OpenSearch core repository itself, which can provide some templates or some, let's say, other module which access this template provider. And basically through this resource interface, we basically allow to use and configure templates, and they will basically contain all the features which we feel can be useful for a use case, and all the settings and the default values will be part of it. Then there is a context template repository. So basically this repository is where the actual configurations are stored in a version manner, so that basically they get persisted as and when, let's say, your deployment changes or anything. So they should be part of your cluster always. So this is the repository part. And then there is a refresh template action. So this action basically would allow you to add new things or remove some things from the template, so that basically if something is not working, or if we need to add more features, we can keep tweaking it as, let's say, the releases are happening. So just to give a high level view, right? Let's say there is a metrics template, and in this we can declare what kind of settings are there which should be applied, along with some placeholders, right? For example, let's say, so we have a different RFC ongoing in OpenSearch around improving the performance of aggregations. So let's say for a metrics use case, I want to allow pre-compute aggregation, but I won't know on what fields, right? So I can provide the placeholder that, okay, whenever a user creates an index with this template, they would need to provide me this value so that this can be used and applied to the specific data types through mappings. And once this template is created, user can basically create an index. And as part of the index creation, apart from what they usually provide, the settings and mappings, they can provide this context where they can provide the params which were basically undeclared or had some placeholders. So for example, custom codec is something they can provide, which was declared above here. And its value can be ZSTD nodec. So basically they were not willing to use best compression. They may wanted to bring their own compression algorithm through the extent plugins, and they wanted to use that. Similarly, for pre-computation aggregation, what fields do they want to aggregate as part of the indexing itself? And they can provide this. And basically when the index is created, it would ensure that all of this context is applied to the index through settings or mappings wherever applicable. And basically this placeholder helps us in keeping this repository generic, and also generic to the use case, like without worrying about what the index name or the fields for the user indices are. And at the same time, if an index is created using this context, it allows us to basically have a forcing function to ask the users to provide these values in case they are using the context and get the best experience. So yeah, this was at a high level what I wanted to get the community thoughts on, like if basically they feel this is a good idea, and if they have any thoughts on what directions should we explore further. As we speak, I'm planning to do a proof of concept code and share with the community as well, to essentially showcase how a complete journey using this context templates can look like. But yeah, as part of this discussion, I'd like to hear from community further if there are any thoughts.
So I know one of the things that could separate OpenSearch quite a bit is the ability for these out-of-box customizations. We don't, I think the majority of people don't really, like first timers wouldn't know what optimizations are the most common.
Exactly.
And so like before implementing code like that, it looks like you had a little matrix of what use case benefited from the best kind of, yeah, this little matrix here. I'd love to see more use cases, and not just that, but like a list of out of the box optimizations that are very common. Because I know the like Z standard dictionaries and changing the way fields, whether they're stored or just indexed, or whether the source is saved, those are things that I've always took for granted until lately, but never quite realized what they gain you in terms of optimization. So I'd love to see some corollary material that talks about what is it you gain from the optimizations, and then apply it to a use case. But that's just me thinking from an introductory level, someone who's never had to optimize OpenSearch before, or maybe someone who's doing a log ingestion pipeline and they're thinking, man, this just isn't uh, behaving as fast as I'd hoped. It
Yeah,
seems like there could be some like a section of documentation and or like optimization prior to even doing these kinds of templates, which I do think are a good idea, by the way. I think uh, when we started doing these flow things for the neural search pipelines and whatnot, it seems like we're heading towards a lot of optimizations for getting people with the right settings for their use case, which isn't something we talk about a whole lot. So I'm all about it.
yeah, exactly. I think what you said, right? Like documentation itself to basically explain what use cases are and what optimizations those use cases can benefit from. And then basically even having this template, right? Overall, I think both go in hand, like having the documentation in place and then translating it to code so that it's available out of the box as soon as you install OpenSearch, right? You don't even have to go to the documentation to understand what settings to even set one by one. Let's say there are 50 or hundreds of those, right?
Right. And you know what? I don't even think we have all of our settings documented. Like if you hit the settings API and ask it to show you all the defaults, it's like this insane list of settings, uh, which actually makes me wonder, do we ever intend on having a GUI interface for any of this stuff? Like I imagine creating an index template and then creating the saved object for it. It would be an awesome time to like pop up a little window in the UI saying, hey, it looks like this index is going to be for logs, would you like to perform these optimizations? I think this would be best served by giving people those little GUI hints about it, because that's where people are going to start first.
Yeah, I think let's create an issue in the dashboards repository, like even to start with, right? And see what can we do there, like based on, let's say, the dev tools interface, what customer users are providing. And like just before sending that request, the client side itself can intercept and check, okay, these are the kind of fields. Looks like it's a log use case and you can optimize using these settings. That can be a one way to basically nudge the users towards direction of optimizing this.
Yeah, because if we come up with an awesome new feature like this, but then we make people compose an API call that may or may not be, easy to remember, that might be a bit of a blocker. Looks like we have a hand raised. Socrates.
Yeah, hello. I'm Socrates from CERN. First of all, thanks a lot for the presentation. Really interesting, and indeed, I've noticed also on my users this barrier of, new to OpenSearch, trying to understand what's going on. And I'll go through the RFC and give my 2 cents, but I'm not yet convinced this new context object is needed, but maybe I will be convinced once I go through it. One big thing that falls in the same category that I faced was that people come and start using OpenSearch. They have typically append-only logs, and they end up using indexes instead of data streams. So in my head and somewhere around this RFC, I would see something more like, like a wizard. I have a new use case. You can click a couple of ticks or mention this. I'm having an append only use case. I'm having these kind of requirements, and then this to be translated into proper index templates to serve the request. So this is something that would be very interesting as well. I will also go through the RFC and maybe throw my 2 cents, but yeah, thanks.
Sure, yeah. I think would love to hear more from you on the RFC and answer anything that you may have after diving deep further. Sure, I think Vadi Raja, you have a question as well.
Hey, I'm Vadi Raja from Cloudera. One of the things that I was wondering is, you have this performance analyzer plugin, right? So if somebody wants to, they don't know what to deploy. I mean, they deploy something, and from the recommendations, can you kind of feed it back to a template creation, which, after a bunch of iterations, then they can come to know based on the actual workload. It can, create some of these tunables, and then over a period of time, you have these refresh capability. It can start to version it and say, hey, this is how you need to do, this is how you need to do.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that I think the organic next step to this, like once we have this kind of interface, right, like the resource to interact with, the detection and the complete feedback loop to feed it back would be the organic next step, so that it can automatically tune by learning from the what has been deployed and how it could have been better, right? I think that could be the organic next step too.
Thank you.
It almost seems like just having a handful of toggle switches for the most common optimizations would be a real quick way to make these available to the public.
Yeah, I think so there are two things, right? One is users relying on dashboards or basically to create the indices, and then there are a set of users who rely on APIs and they are creating indices over time for the other use cases, right? So building this within the, let's say, the core repo, and then having it in the basically a UI for these contexts or the use cases on dashboards. I think that should complete the entire story for backend as well as basically the UI module.
Yeah, spot on.
Hey, Govind.
Hey, yeah, this is Govind. I work on performance at AWS on OpenSearch. So I think, yeah, this is a very timely proposal. I think it's certainly going to be very useful to a lot of users in the community. I think it's quite well thought out. So one of the things, I think, seconding what Nathan had talked about, documenting all of these. I think it's good to provide all of these templates and so on. Part of it is how are users going to figure out what exactly they want, and when they get it, apart from actually looking at the template, is there some way that they will know what the settings are that particular template provides? So at a high level, looking through this large list of system templates and figuring out exactly what they need, right? So is there some documentation about that? And the second thing is, yeah, once they've installed all of these, I think you did mention something about system templates getting updated. So let's say some of the system templates, I mean, the one that you're using, for instance, gets updated with some additional capabilities. I mean, you can pull it and refresh it, but what about the indices that were already set up with those templates? Is there some way to sort of go ahead and apply those settings, or is there some easy way for them to do that, to update those when they want to?
Yeah, so I think what I was thinking was in the context interface itself, we can basically ask the users to provide this apply template updates as a flag. It can be true or false. And based on this, essentially, if there are any template which gets refreshed, right, a new version gets created. For indices which are created from those context templates, if they have this flex set to true, the cluster manager or the resource handler within the OpenSearch node setup should be able to apply those updates to the existing indices as well. And if they want, basically, there should be a dynamic kind of setting so that they can choose to not apply or apply if they decide later after creating the index as well.
I see. So when the system template repository is updated, I mean, that is something that's upstream, right? And there must be some active action on the part of the user to pull those system templates down. So after, so let's say someone else has updated the system template, when does it get reflected on the local cluster?
Yeah, so system templates, I think the storage needs to be tied to the cluster. And so the action that can update that template repository, right? That should go via basically the OpenSearch cluster, the refresh template action, the same cluster. And essentially that cluster itself should have a side effect of once the repository is updated to basically apply those updates on the respective indices of that cluster.
I see. So that is some setting that has to be done so that it will actually go and look for these updates as they have been made.
Correct. So we need to handle this as part of the implementation itself. But once the user declares this, I think the flag based on their requirement, the cluster itself can choose to apply or not.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think overall, I think this is good. I'll take a look at the proposal, but I think it's got all the capabilities that most people might need.
Well, yeah, looking forward to your thoughts and comments on the RFC. Well, if there are no more questions, I'd like to encourage all of you to go to the issue and leave any comments. I'd like to hear more from you and see how we can build this better as a community. Yeah, cool. Thanks, folks. That's all I had to present.
Well, thanks. Excuse me. Thanks for joining us, Mohit. I think we all, no matter what position we're in, we all have a vested interest in participating in these RFCs. And once again, I will encourage everyone to go and share your thoughts on that. Even if it's just, well, this isn't useful to me, or this sounds like an awesome idea. We have to know. So yes, thank you for all of that. So with one of our presenters, AWOL, I'm going to go ahead and leave it up to just OpenQA and see if anything has anything they'd like to bring up. I know that one thing that Chris wanted to bring up was that at OpenSearchCon Berlin, we're going to have a workshop, thinking like a relevance engineer. That's on our OpenSearch.org, OpenSearchCon India pages. If you wanted to read about that training, it's a worthwhile training, and it'll be a great workshop for to have at the OpenSearchCon. But that will be worth your time if you end up joining us in Berlin. I know I feel a bit obligated to bring this up as well, is that you know, I haven't seen a lot of maintainers being nominated lately. Like, is there any? Well, let's back that up a bit. Just for my own curiosity, is there anyone in here who wishes they could contribute or is being blocked from contributing in any particular fashion? I'd like to try to get people excited to become a maintainer and help participate in that regard, you know, helping maintain code and performing code reviews and whatnot. And I know that we have a lot of repos that we could be doing that in. So I'm just curious, is anyone being actively blocked by anything that I could help with? Can I point people in the right direction, or does anyone have any comments in that regard? Nothing, huh? Okay. I'll just remind everyone, no matter what skill set you have, there is a spot for you to contribute to the OpenSearch project. You'll probably hear me say it a lot to the point of being irritated, but if you're a coder, if you're a blogger, if you're a leader, if you're a teacher, if you were a vlogger, you know, any of these kinds of things, we need your know-how and your experience. This is how awesome things happen. Not that we're not awesome already.
Christian put something in the chat.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, sure. RFC regarding FIPS.
Hello, can you hear me? Oh,
Kai is also part of the group. I would like to pass on to Kai if it's possible. He's
Sure.
the lead of the team, so please, Kai.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name's Kai. I'm from Germany. We run our own consulting company. I'm here with my colleague Christian, who's a senior software engineer. And so we created this RFC for FIPS 140 compliance roadmap for OpenSearch. And was wondering if this is the right place to discuss this. So yeah, we kind of created this in order to try to unify the various contributions and efforts that are already on the way, and maybe get a broader discussion into the community, so we can all work together to implement FIPS 140 compliance. So yeah, this is the first question. Is this the right meeting for this?
Absolutely. This is a great spot to bring this up. And in fact, any RFC relating to OpenSearch, yeah, this is the place. If you'd like to share your screen, I can make you co-host, or did you want to just link us to
Excellent. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share my screen.
Sure. Let me make you co-host here.
Put a link to the RFC in the chat as well. That'll be helpful for everyone.
I already posted the link on the chat.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Take it away, Kai.
Okay, so this is the RFC we created, and basically it's spaced out into an introduction. So here we describe why it's important to have OpenSearch support FIPS, and also why also the past RFCs that have already been created. So there's 2 RFCs we identified, and there's a couple of other approaches that were scattered throughout the code base. And we identified, we started out by identifying all the places that potentially need to be changed. And there's probably lots of more places, but these are the ones we started with. And based on that, we created kind of a 7-step approach of how we would suggest to implement this. So the first step would be to verify the algorithms that are already being used across the code base, and also define the FIPS compliant alternatives. Next, we would define this default security providers, also FIPS, basically the FIPS, the security providers that have undergone FIPS verification. Next, we changed the policy and security files, adapt the tests, implement a central security provider, because we identified lots of places where these changes are. So in order to prevent the code being scattered across the code base, it's probably a good idea to centralize the entire implementation in one place, or rather the selection of the security engines that are being used. And lastly, implement Gradle or change the Gradle and adapt tests and create new tests. So the first steps would it's kind of an iterative approach, as I mentioned, to first identify all the places, change them, try to run OpenSearch, and then find out if OpenSearch is successfully running in FIPS mode. So for that to work, we have already started with a FIPS compliant Linux JVM, and we've exactly done this by starting it up, running it, trying to find out what's wrong, fixing errors, and so on. But this will just yield a FIPS compliant OpenSearch a search that is not really clean. It won't be a clean implementation. It will just be an implementation that works. And naturally, you don't want that. We would like an implementation that is also clean and configurable. And this is where the step 5 comes into place, where we need to refactor everything we've learned into a central security provider. Yeah, and this is basically what we envisioned for a roadmap towards FIPS compliance. And yeah, we would, yeah, we're looking forward to your thoughts and comments. And we'd really like to invite the community to discuss this, and everyone that's already has some experience with FIPS or security to help out and to contribute to this RFC. Yeah.
Hi, Kai. This is Terry. We've been from SAS. We've been in contact before. So I wrote the previous RFC that this is based on. So some of this is already in progress, as I think you know. So from the previous RFC, there was a breakdown of how we're going to put in these exact same things, really, and just written slightly differently. So we've actually started committing code to get closer to this stage. So we think, like, already we've like written a Kai's, I know Kai and his team have seen our proof of concept code that we put up so we could get the security plugin working with all the plugins we need. So we've got that working, and now we're trying to piecemeal contribute that back. So we've already started that. In fact, a PR just accepted in the past hour towards this. So we're trying to break the reliance on non-FIPS bouncy castle libraries at the moment. And I think we can get to the stage where, like we've discussed on the OpenSearch triage meetings for the security plugin, an approach for configuring this so we can break it down and specify FIPS compliant algorithms. So I think we can get it to that stage where the remaining problem is how to deploy the core OpenSearch with all the various plugins that use different versions of bouncy castle libraries, or have multiple versions of bouncy castle libraries on the class path. So for our own, like we build our own Docker container built on OpenSearch, and we can control that internally, but it's more difficult to contribute that back with the way there's a kind of a sprawl between all the different plugins and OpenSearch core. So the difficult part is there's a pre-existing story to abstract the bouncy castle usage, which would be the main bit of work that would get this all hanging together, that everyone using OpenSearch could use it. But apart from that, if you look at the very first, at the bottom of the introduction there, if you click on this issue in the very, I think that's it. Yeah, so that's the existing RFC that the work is being derived off. So our initial set of plans that we wrote up, that we're going to put them in this order. But we had some blocks because we couldn't submit some of these certain points because they would have broken other plugins or other functionality. But we are now contributing these back where we can. And things have changed. No longer is there a JDK 11 requirement. It's now we can use JDK 17 now as well, because Bouncy Castle, the API has now been approved for Java 17. But then on that, there are always talks, there's like a lot of moving targets here, and that recently, like if there's ever talk of like moving the whole benchmark of the code to Java 21, then that would give us problems in future for FIPS if only JDK in 11 and 17 are approved. Another one that came up recently, in fact, I was going to see it, I wasn't sure which RFC they added to because we have our pre-existing one, and the new one's just like it looks the same to us, just in a differently worded. But we're now hitting issues, especially in abstracts and the bouncy castle libraries, and that there was a recent OpenSAML upgrade. And the upgrade of OpenSAML has brought in a dependency on bouncy castle. But then, like, it now breaks any FIPS compliance, and Elasticsearch have actually stopped their upgrade of that library for that reason, because it would break FIPS compliance. So not only would it be even getting things to a state where everything was FIPS compliant, but we'd need safeguards in place for future for things like that could be brought in that would then break FIPS compliance. That adds like extra complexity. Sorry, I don't know if I went on too long there. It's just to put my thoughts up. But yeah, we're looking forward to working with like Kai and his team as well to do different things. And as I say, we've got work ongoing now. So we're starting to break changes for like various masking that uses like Blake to be that's non-FIPS compliant. So we've got code going in to fix that. We've got code we're working on at the moment. There was proof of concept to bring in different algorithms we can configure for the password hashing. So in the end, I think we're going to get the stage relief, just basically how do we solve bouncy castle libraries and not break anything else.
So
Feel free to stop me talking later.
No, you're fine. No, this discussion is absolutely necessary. I'm curious though, like what do you guys imagine the end product being? Is it a whole separate build of OpenSearch that's FIPS compliant, or do you imagine instantiating OpenSearch with like /FIPS on the end? So it's like a runtime switch between the two, FIPS compliant and non-FIPS compliant.
Yeah, so even before our RFC, there was like an issue raised. Can we have like this FIPS mode? So basically Elasticsearch have like a flag, FIPS mode enabled or not enabled, right? So it's basically, can we have this for OpenSearch too? And we have customers asking for it. So that was the original approach. We spoke with your security plugin guys, and they're talking about there's more, rather than having these like binary flags, they prefer configurability. So we're working now towards adding configurability for these different algorithms. And that actually helps us in a way to contribute back, so we don't need a big bang where we're turning FIPS mode on or off. We can gradually like introduce these new features for configuring that. But then, as I say, that then leaves the problem of how do you do the whole build? And as you say, does that mean then you have like a new build of OpenSearch you download? They go, this is FIPS mode, so it contains all the bouncy castle FIPS libraries, but then has limitations saying OpenSAML won't work because they're not going to fix their reliance on bouncy castle. Things like that don't work. And Elasticsearch have that too. Their various plugins and things like the ingest mapper, they say just don't work in FIPS mode. But then it means, like, from our point of view, it's difficult. So we're working on the security plugin. We're familiar with core, and we use several additional language plugins. But it's hard to know what else we could potentially break that we don't use. So when you say, is it a new build, FIPS-enabled build, do you mean OpenSearch Core plus the plugins, OpenSearch Core plus the dashboards? So we're trying to concentrate the stuff we need and contribute that back. So we don't need dashboards. So we can work in core and the security plugin, get them working for us and contribute back what we can. It's then the whole wider like OpenSearch ecosystem that makes it difficult.
Right, because you never know what might be excluded as a result of changing those algorithms up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not even the algorithm, it's like the bouncy castle libraries, especially as well. Like, yeah, as you say, and everything runs like in a same JVM. And as soon as somebody uses like some plugin we don't use, then it's hard for us to know that that's going to break.
Yeah, it almost seems like it would be unpredictable.
Yeah, so there's we too believe that it should be a runtime setting. So it's probably impractical having two different implementations for, or even it's a dedicated version for FIPS, right? It would be much better having a version that supports FIPS mode or non-FIPS mode at runtime, like pulling a couple of levers or switches, and then it's FIPS compliant. That would probably be the ideal situation. So, Terry, how it sounds like you've progressed pretty far already.
Yes, we haven't done, we haven't blocked. It's especially, as I said, it's the issue of what to do with the bouncy castle libraries is difficult. And we're hitting some bugs that are blocking us as well. And raise those because like different security policies are interacting badly with each other.
So maybe we could talk offline.
We can certainly coordinate. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that would be great if you could talk offline. So since time is running up.
Sure, and I think there have been discussions we've had with the security plugin guys that have changed slightly since you last maybe spoke about it, about how we approach this. So this like on-off FIPS mode thing is like undesirable. So yeah, that's changed.
All right. Thank you.
But yeah,
thank
as
you, Terry.
I say, as Kai as well, like it's like for the wider community, this is a feature we're being asked for all the time.
It seems reasonable.
I think it'd be really valuable. Yeah.
Like somehow you got to enumerate all those algorithms and find ones that are FIPS compliant, and whether it's a per functionality algorithm switch, or like maybe you define what algorithm to use in a config file somewhere. And anyways, it sounds like you guys are thinking about some large scoped kinds of things to expand the use cases for OpenSearch. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to invite, let's see, well, we're one after. I'm in no particular hurry, but if anyone needs to drop, you're welcome to drop. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Yeah,
I just want. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have like wanted probably not sure if we have time. I had one RFC on context-aware segment. Probably if someone can like if folks can provide feedback. Not sure like if we can present it right away.
Probably want to present it at the next meeting, but yeah, it's linked here in the chat. We would definitely love to get everyone to give feedback on that.
Awesome.
I was just gonna mention, don't forget OpenSearch Con Berlin is on May 6th. And then we're also, and it starts on May 6th, we're also running OpenSearch Con India, which is a one-day event that's happening in Bangalore on June 26th. So if you're interested, please hop over to our website and check it out. It's going to be another great event. We've kind of expanded for this year. We have 3 that are going, and we'll be announcing OpenSearch Con North America in just a few short weeks. So be ready.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I have nothing else to share with anyone. I was hoping that we could hire a couple of spiders to work at OpenSearch. Those guys can find anything on the web.
Nice.
And with that, I will leave everyone to it. Thanks for joining.
Neat.